Hi everyone, my name is Nigel Stott and I'm a legal technology consultant with Baskerville Drummond. In today's video we're going to be talking about automation in Microsoft 365. And automation in 365 I guess is one of those tools that is less well known. Specifically, automation is provided by an application, a piece of functionality called Power Automate. It's part of what we call the Power Platform in Microsoft 365, and it's something that Microsoft are investing a lot of time and money into further developing. And certainly over the last 6 to 12 months, I've seen some major improvements and changes in the tools that we're going to look at today. One of the other things I would say as well is that there has previously been a lot of discussion around artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities and the way these can be applied to the day-to-day work that law firms perform. Machine learning tools are part of the Microsoft 365 toolset, and some of the machine learning capabilities are surfaced in applications like Power Automate and Power Apps. When it comes to robotic process automation, Gartner released the latest version of the Magic Quadrant for RPA, or Robotic Process Automation, in July 2021. And we can see amongst a lot of the well-known and popular automation tools that Microsoft, in that upper right-hand quadrant, as both a leader and a visionary, are now starting to make a play against some of the more well-known vendors in the market, such as UiPath and Automation Anywhere. So it's starting to become a serious contender. So when we're talking about automation in Microsoft 365, then exactly what are we talking about? Which tools provide that automation that law firms can tap into? Well, in the Power Platform, there are 3 separate products. There is Power BI, that's used for data visualization and data analytics and intelligence. There's Power Apps that allow firms to create their own applications that can be pushed out to users via smartphones or via the desktop. And Power Apps takes what we call a low-code, no-code approach. So in actual fact, to get started with Power Apps, you need very little development background experience. And then of course there's Power Automate. Power Automate is a product we're going to focus on today because it's Power Automate that allows us to start automating some of those common business processes that we carry out manually today. So Power Automate, what is it? Well, essentially it allows us to create workflows via connectors into standard Microsoft 365 applications. So for example, if I want to automate processes between SharePoint, Teams, OneDrive, I can do all of that through the Power Automate capabilities. But the best way to properly understand Power Automate is to look at a demonstration. So we'll go on to that shortly. But essentially, what is automation? What are we talking about? Well, we've already referred to robotic process automation, or RPA. And essentially, this is a process of using a software application to replicate what we do as human beings and interact with the user interface of our IT systems to replicate those actions. So when we're talking about Power Automate works on the basis of flows. So we can create various flows to automate things. And in Power Automate, there's essentially 3 types of flow that we can put together. First of all, there's what we call a cloud flow. So when we want something to be automated via a trigger, then we can do that. The trigger can be something automatic, so it could be the submission of a form, it could be the updating of a field, or we can do this via a schedule as well. So we can schedule a flow to take place on a set day and time of our choosing. Desktop flows are tasks that automate what we do either on the web or directly on the computer desktop. And Microsoft have released an application especially for this, so you can download an application to your desktop that will allow you to automate the flows on the activities or the applications that you carry out on a day-to-day basis. Business process flows are slightly different. They can be more complex, but they provide a guide for people essentially to get work done. So our focus today is going to be on Cloudflow, and we're going to look at a Cloudflow that will be triggered by an event. It will then perform an action or a series of actions, and what we'll need to do once we've created the Cloudflow to do the above is then test the flow to make sure that it all works correctly. So in this example, we're going to use the example of a firm who has a requirement for a data breach form. Once that form has been completed, the flow will detect the completion of that form. It will then post results into a SharePoint list, and it will also create a Teams channel message for the compliance team to let them know that a form has been filled in as well. So at this point, we'll drop into a demo and we'll have a look at the process of creating this flow. So you can see here, one of the things I've created in preparation is a Microsoft form. So this is a form that will allow the compliance team to collect information from employees to report a data breach. So there's four very straightforward but distinct questions. So first of all, the employee will be asked to enter the name of the client the data breach refers to, the client reference number, the incident date, and more details of the breach itself. If we head over to SharePoint, what I've also done is created a SharePoint list with columns that match the questions that are being asked in the form. And essentially this is where we're going to post the results of the form, the data in it, so that the information can be stored in this list in SharePoint, and if need be at any point, the compliance team can export that into an Excel spreadsheet. So how do we go about creating the flow itself? So the first thing we're going to do is head over to Power Automate. We're going to select Create from the left hand side, and we're going to create a brand new automated Cloudflow. So I'm going to click on the automated Cloudflow option there. The first thing I'll be asked to do is to give the flow a name. And then what I need to do is I need to select what will trigger the flow. So if I just head down to this option here, and we're going to trigger the flow when a new response is submitted from Microsoft Forms. So that's going to be the trigger for our flow to be invoked. So once I've entered the name and entered the trigger, all I do now is click on the Create option there. And you can see now that I've got the first step in my flow. So here's the trigger step, and the first thing it's asked me to do is pick the form I want to use. So I'm going to create the report data breach form, and then we're going to go to create a new step. So what we want to do at this stage is we want to get the details that were entered into the form, and for that I need a get response details step. So if I click on get response details, again I'm going to select the form, and this response ID, what I'm going to do is just click in the box there and choose this response ID option that's appeared in the pop-up window. So the next thing we need to do is we need to create another new step, and this time I want to get the details of the person that has responded. So for this, we're going to use the get user profile step. So it's this here. So we're going to get the user details directly from Active Directory, where all the user details are stored. And it's asking for a user, a unique identifier for the user. So what we're going to do here is we're going to ask for the responder's email address, or we're going to use the responder's email address, should I say. So that way we can match up the email address of the person that responded with their user profile in Active Directory. So we've got to add another new step now, and this time we are going to start populating the responses in the form into SharePoint. So the option I need here is to create a SharePoint list item. So let's choose create item here. And the first thing it's going to ask us for is a SharePoint site address. So I'll click on the drop down menu here. And this is the one that I want, the Spencer and Emmett Law Firm site. And the list that I've created, which is the data breaches list. So now it's going to ask me to map the various fields from the Microsoft form into the column headings on the SharePoint list. So if I just go through and click into each of these, and you can see that the box on the right hand side appears every time. So for the title, I'm going to use the client name, and of course I'm going to use client name again for the client name. Now I could have actually had those in the same column, but just for the purposes of this demo I'll separate them out. If we go down to client reference number, again I'm just going to scroll down here and choose the client reference number field. We then choose the date of the incident in the next field, and finally the details of the event. Okay, so we have configured our SharePoint list to take the responses that we've entered in the form, and the next step is to post a mention on the compliance team's SharePoint channel. So what I'm going to do now is first of all get a token for the user that we are posting about. So this is one we need here, which is get an @mention token. So we need to get a token first of all, and the user principal ID will be the email address of the responder. And final step here is to finally post it, or post a message in the Microsoft Teams channel for the compliance team. So I want to choose the post message in a chat or channel. And then I choose which channel I want to post that in. So I'm going to post that in a channel. And then it asks me which team I want to use. So we have a report data breach team, and we're going to post it in the general channel there. And essentially that's going to say a new breach notification has been added by, and then what we can do is we can choose the @mention token there. So that's all completed. All I'm going to do now is click on the save button, and you'll see here in the top left it's telling me that the flow is ready to go. If there's any problems with the flow at that stage, it will come up with an error and ask you to check the flow details. So without further ado, let's give that a test. So if we go back to our form, I'm just going to go into preview mode there so I can complete it. So let's go through and put our incident date, which was the 27th, pre-flight details, sent records to incorrect address. And then let's click on submit. Now you can see what happens if we just click on the back button here in Power Automate. And I can see that it's recognized the trigger of the form being submitted and it has succeeded. So let's go first of all to our SharePoint list and refresh that just to make sure the details have been populated. I can see here that the details have all been added. And then if we go over to Microsoft Teams, okay, and I can see that a new message in the general channel or a new post in the general channel has been added as well. So essentially there we are. That's how we create a flow in Power Automate. And there's all sorts of ways they can be applied on a practical day-to-day basis. I hope you found the video useful. If there's anything you'd like to know about Power Automate or Microsoft 365 in general, don't hesitate to get in touch. But thanks for watching the video and stay tuned for our next one soon.